So, I certainly don't need to record, but I kind of feel like that I want to, It is fairly late, so it is 10 p.m., and I should go to bed at 10 p.m. Well, it's actually 10:03, so already a bit too late. And, well, yeah, and also that I get my 8 hours of sleep, which may or may not be that important. It depends though, but at the time, I pretty much feel like that I'm exhausting myself to quite a high degree, which, well, yeah, it might not be the smartest thing to do. Like, why? It is in general something that I thought about, and I also thought about the podcast and, quite everything that I'm doing on a regular basis, and I do wonder whether it actually makes sense. I've been doing the podcast for quite some time now. I, I have seen some change and I have seen some progress, but I know that I could do better. I know I could do better by doing, things a bit differently. But, hmm, maybe it's just too easy to go ahead doing mediocre stuff, thinking about things that you could do better. And, besides that whole thing, actually doing things that are worth doing. Like, I don't know anymore whether it is worth doing for me, the podcast and whatnot. Like, of course, I've also progressed myself, I've also been able to develop certain skills and certain knowledge and whatnot, which I'm extremely grateful for. Like, don't get me wrong, but, you know, there has to be a point where I guess, one has to stop quite. And the question is when to do so. There's actually a book that Seth Godin wrote quite about that, like when to stop and what to do when you decide not to stop. Pretty interesting and also pretty important because I'm definitely not the only person that is feeling that way. There's many people feeling the same in regards to something else, whether it is a job, a business they started, whatever it might be about. I mean, it is, I think, always something that people are talking about when things may not be going as well as they think and or hoped that they are gonna go. You know, well, yeah. How to turn that time into a lifetime. One day you will die. You will cease to exist, and all your dreams, hopes, and aspirations, everything you ever wanted to do and be, will die with you. Allied with the unstoppable passage of time, that day marches ominously closer and closer. Every time you wake up, you are one day nearer to your demise. In the face of our inevitable mortality, we banish death from our awareness and attempt to avoid the thoughts or that thought at all costs. We delude ourselves, clinging to the thought that we have all the time in the world. Death, however, is the ultimate reality, the terminal limit to your days on this planet. To truly understand the fact of your finitude is to recognize how great a waste it is when you don't use every making moment to the fullest. This is the essence of the popular Latin maxim of Memento Mori. Let's actually read ahead there. This article is or this Reddit post has quite some length. That time. Despite the fact that our hourglass is running out of life, we still don't use our time fully. We continue to tolerate that time in our lives. But what is that time? So Ryan Holiday explains, the author of many books, well, at least many articles and some books, about Stoicism and or books using Stoicism to necessarily explain things, but, show things, say things, communicate something. There are two types of time, a lifetime and that time. One is when you sit around, when you wait until things happen to you. The other is when you're in control, when you make every second count, when you're learning and improving and growing. That time is characterized by the lulls in your day. It is a time that you would have pass quickly, time that you just want to get over. It could be that train commute to work in the morning, or that hour in the evening where you have nothing to do. Is any time that you find yourself mindlessly scrolling Instagram or whiling, away watching YouTube. Why do most people continue to tolerate that time in their lives? Man's search for himself explains. Well, I do, by the way, want to point out, I don't think that time is bad. At this point in time, I often think about balance as well, and me being in need of balance, you know. And this for me represents balance. Mindlessly scrolling through Instagram, watching a few YouTube videos, making sure that I get some active rest. Not only passive, sleeping is passive rest, for me at least, as I'm considering things. And so it does, at least for me, make sense to also get some active rest, and doing things that you enjoy and giving yourself just some fucking rest. If a man's awareness of the passage of time or passage of time tells him only that the day comes and goes and winter follows autumn and that nothing is happening in his life except hour succeeding hour, he must desensitize himself or else suffer painful boredom and emptiness. It is interesting that when we are bored, we tend to go sleep. When we are bored, we tend to go to sleep. That is, to blot out consciousness and become as nearly extinct as possible. It is this desire to deaden out consciousness that makes us turn to empty pleasures. These efforts may take the form of intoxication or more extremely, drug addiction. Well, intoxication definitely is also addiction, but anyway. Or the relatively common form of trying to fill up the time to make it pass quickly. Which is something that I'm doing quite often. Filling my day up to the very border, to the very end, to the very whatever. So that I don't know. And this is really something that I had to think about. And I'm still thinking about it. It's on one hand, it is insane the amount of work that I am able to put out every single day. On the other hand, it is stupid because why? Why all that stress? Why all that sleepless nights or low sleep nights, whatever, low amount of sleep, and why? Why do I do things? Why do I have the podcast at this point? Why don't I take a step back and get the right amount of balance that I seemingly need? It is difficult. These efforts may take the form of intoxication or more extremely drug addiction, or the relatively common form of trying to fill up the time to make it pass quickly. A lifetime. Fortunately, reclaiming that time and resuccating it so that it may become a lifetime only requires a simple shift in mindset. How do you do this? You reassess your situation and take stock with a new pair of eyes. Instead of seeing boredom and monotony, now you're looking for opportunity instead. You might protest. What do you mean, opportunity? I'm stuck in this situation with nothing to do. If there was an opportunity here, I would have pursued it already. This objection comes from thinking of opportunity in the wrong way. You see, conventionally, opportunity is seen as something that exists out there in the world. If it comes our way, we have a chance to seize it. It depends on being in the right place at the right time. But the truth is that for the human mind, every situation that it may find itself in is a potential opportunity of one kind or other, or another. There is always opportunity in your surroundings, no matter how bleak the situation may look to you. You can always open your eyes and reassess the situation and utilize the opportunity therein. This is how you turn that time into a lifetime. So there's again a quote by Ryan Holiday. Life is constantly asking us, is this going to be a lifetime or dead time? A long commute, or are you going to zone out or listen to an audiobook? A delayed flight? Are we going to get in a couple of miles by walking around the terminal, or shove a Cinnabon into our face? Shove. A tour of duty or a contract we have to earn out? Is this trying us? Is this tying us down or freeing us up? That is our call. A couple hours in the afternoon after work that you waste every day, that can become a lifetime. You can take a quick nap and shower to refresh, grab a cup of coffee and do an hour of online courses every day. You can virtually gain a university education during your daily commute in the form of YouTube lectures and audiobooks. Just these can completely turn your life around. The greatest were all careful not to let their time turn that, even and especially when the circumstances they found themselves in deteriorate. Ryan Holiday elaborates. Isaac Newton did some of his best research when Cambridge closed due to the plague. Shakespeare wrote King Lear, I think, while he hid out from the plague as well. Ian Fleming, the creator of James Bond, wrote Jitty Jetty Bang Bang while he was laid up in the hospital, expressly forbidden from working on something as tough as a novel. Malcolm X educated himself in prison and turned himself into the activist the world needed. The last of these, Malcolm X, is particularly inspiring. He took the worst on freedom, a prison sentence, and used it as a tool in his transformation. He did not allow his time to become dead. Instead, he used it to teach himself to read, to become articulate, to gain knowledge. When he exited the prison, he had utilized his time so well that he said, I put prison second to college as the best place for a man to go if he needs to do something thinking. If he's motivated in prison, he can change his life. Your time is precious. It is the only commodity you truly own and from which everything else originates. Make sure you don't waste it. So don't.